Okay, so my friend sent me this on Twitter. It says, what's an album everyone calls a masterpiece, but you don't get the hype? I did a similar video like this earlier this year, but hey, I have some more albums that I have to share, so let's get into it. First up, Summerwalker, Over It. Y'all get this album far too much. After listening to this album, I was over it. I'm sorry. The production on here consistently blends together. Her vocal performances on here are sleepy, like wake the fuck up when they're in the studio. I don't know what's going on there. Songwriting on here wasn't that great, it was kind of uninspired. There was maybe 4 or 5 songs that I took from this album, but overall I just do not get the hype for this album. I don't get why y'all try to say that this is on par with SZA Control or that it is better than SZA Control. I think Still Over It was better. It was a little bit more dynamic. I still didn't take a whole lot of songs for that either and everything. And Summer Walker is kind of just wish-washy for me as an artist. You know, she has some songs I like, but most of her songs just kind of blend together for me. So I really don't understand why y'all continuously hype up this album, because when I listened, it wasn't giving what it was supposed to be gave. Next up, Madonna, Raylight. This is not a good album. This is not a good album. People really try to sit up here and say that this album is on par with Janet Jackson, Velvet Rope, and Mariah Carey, Butterfly. They really say that. Okay, I listened to this album with one of my friends because I'd never heard it. I was like, I'm going to give it a fair chance and let's just see what it's giving. Let's just see what it's giving. I took maybe 2 or 3 songs off of this album. Don't remember what they were called, but my takeaways from this album: production, I didn't love it. Songwriting, meh, a few good moments here or there, and vocal performances were god-awful. I don't like Madonna's vocals, and on here she's not doing herself any favors. When I listened to Ray of Light, the song, in full, I was like, Madonna can't sing for fucking shit. And I've been saying it, but hearing that song, I'm like, you recorded the vocal and you went home and you thought that that was acceptable for other people to listen to. The engineers thought that. They thought that was okay. That's what I don't get. That's what I don't get. And so, yeah, this album, I get what she was trying to do with it. I believe she just had her daughter around this time and she got into Buddhism or whatever. But sonically, it's just not pleasant to listen to. It's just not hitting for me. I'm so sorry. I don't get why y'all give Ray Light so much. I truly do not. Janet Jackson, self-titled. Yup. And this is an album that I said was carried by the singles, but I've said this before. Every time we're talking about, you know, really good 5 album runs and y'all throw Janet in there and then we have the self-titled album, when are we gonna have the conversation that the self-titled album is not as good as you guys think it is? Because it's really not. I'm sorry. We had some good songs in here. You know, I enjoyed If, for example. Obviously, That's the Way Love Goes was a classic. New Agenda, I feel like, is kind of underrated. The Body Loves You. There are some good songs in here. I'm not negating that. But when y'all try to act like it's on the level of a Rhythm Nation or Control or the Velvet Rope, that's where you're going to lose me every single time. There are too many songs on this album. The interludes, they usually work for Janet, they don't really work on this album, so I think that that's the issue. This album could have been condensed more, and I just don't think that it is sitting in, you know, that run, and that is as good as those other albums. So y'all need to stop overhyping this album. I'm so sorry. It just is not really hitting like those other albums. I've given it many listens and it's grown on me slightly, but it's just not saying no. So I'll just say that. And you already know Janet on timeout right now because she pissed me off with those comments. Don't even get me started. But I just had to mention this album. Katyperry, Teenage Dream. Yup. And this is another one I talked about recently in my albums where it was carried by the singles. Singles on here are excellent. You know, I can't deny that. Teenage Dream song, California Girls. I believe E.T. was on the original version of this album. You know, that was a great moment as well. And so when this album hits, it hits. But the album tracks on here are awful. Peacock, she really allowed that to be released. And that was domestic terrorism. I don't care who tells it. Okay, so you had that. Hummingbird Heartbeat was awful. Pearl, who's listening to that? Nothing Like the Movies. Circle the Drain. It's just, listening to this album, I completely understand why Katy Perry started to flop. And someone said her album tracks sounded like rejected singles. I co-signed that after listening to this album. Outside of the singles, it's god awful. I am so sorry. Y'all try to act like this album is sitting with Taylor Swift 1989. It could never. That is so disrespectful to say. I'm sorry. I get 10s where 10s are due. The singles were good, and you know, no one can take those hits away from her and not run into 2010s. But yeah, let's just kind of have that moment, and that's what I have to say. Y'all overrate this album. I'm sorry. Putting one by a male artist that came to mind, Georgeharrison, All Things Must Pass. Yeah. Y'all give George Harrison post the Beatles way too much. I am so sorry. I felt this way about this album for years. I've listened to it multiple times trying to see what everybody else sees in the album, and I truly don't. Whoever sat down and told George Harrison to make a triple album, you're on my ob list. Why would he put this out? I'm so sorry. There was maybe good enough material for one album, and that's pushing it. I like the title track and, you know, maybe 4 or 5 other songs songs at most from this album. And when y'all sit here and try to say that this was on par with Ram or Band of the Run or Redwood Speedway or, you know, albums he did wing solo for the most part, I'm gonna disagree with you every single time. I am sorry. George Harrison has his highs and he has some mid stuff, and then he has his really lows. And a lot of this album, I didn't need it, I didn't appreciate it, and y'all just keep giving George Harrison way too much. I am sorry. George Harrison was not on Paul McCartney's level. Y'all disrespect Paul McCartney a little bit too much for my taste, and I have to put a stop to it. Another album, I have to say, Rihanna, Rated R. So a lot of my friends love this album and they think that it's Rihanna's best album, and I consistently call this album overrated R because I just feel like you guys overrated. I had some songs that I liked, you know, I'm not gonna negate that. Hard is obviously a great song. Rockstar 101 with Slash. I really enjoyed Rude Boy, Russian Roulette. There are some good songs on this album that I took with me, you know, but when y'all try to say that it's on the level of a Loud, of an Anti, I'm just tired of you guys overrating this album. I'm tired of you guys overrating the album. I respect the message. I respect what she was going for, and she went through a lot of that time. And I have respect for Rihanna. I do, you know, with that all being said, I wanted to add in that message. But you guys just give this album too much, and I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing it. So I just had to say that. The one that just came to mind for me, Justified by Justin Timberlake. So I want to say there's some good songs on here. I think that Take It From Here, one of the best songs in the albums, one that one of my friends really enjoys, and I understand. And I also really enjoyed Nothing Else. Senorita is incredible off of this album as well. I mean, the singles for the most part were pretty good. Like I Love You was a really good single off of this album. Rock Your Body is a classic, obviously. And Cry Me a River, I'm tired of that song. It's been overplayed. I don't need to hear it again. The album tracks on here, I mentioned some of the ones that I already liked. I think kind of towards the lower stretch of the album, it loses me with like, Oh, Know What You Got. And I think there's one song that Janet Jackson was on here that I didn't really like. And yeah, kind of just towards the end, I didn't really love it. I like about half of this album, and the reason why I'm putting it in here is because I constantly hear people say that this is Justin Timberlake's best album or one of his best, and I kind of think that you guys just give this album too much. I think that Future Sex Love Sounds was better. I think that 2020 Experience Part 1 was better. I would even put his new album above Justified. So is it absolutely horrible? No, I just think that you guys overrated. There's some really strong stuff here, but it's not a consistent album down the stretch, and that's what really matters. Cardi B, Invasion of Privacy. Yep, I have to say it, Carried by the Singles, again, kind of similar to what I was saying in my other video. And yeah, the album tracks on this, I just wasn't really enjoying, to be honest with you. And so we can't take away the success of the singles of Bodak Yellow, I Like It, and what Cardi did for female rap at that time. And Cardi, you know, still had some hits afterwards. I'm not negating that. But this album and what y'all try to say about it and how good it is, I won't let y'all. I'm sorry, this album is not that good, and all the music that Cardi B releases sounds incredibly dated. It really does. Like listening to Bodak Yellow years later, it sounds dated. It does, and we have to have that conversation. I'll give Cardi 10s where 10s are due, and hopefully her next album is successful. I don't really have much against her. Musically, a lot of her stuff is for me, and that's okay, but y'all kind of overrate Invasion of Privacy, if you let me tell it. Lady Gaga, The Fame. I don't know if people are calling it a masterpiece, but I've seen a bunch of people on Twitter, on social media, try to act like this was a good album. When I listened to it with my friend, I was astonished by how bad everything outside of the singles was. I really cannot tell you. I don't know what the fuck Lady Gaga was doing outside of the singles. I truly don't. But we had good moments with the singles. We had Love Game, we had Paparazzi, we had Poker Face. But when we get to the album tracks and you just listen to what she's doing with her vocal deliveries, with the songwriting, with the production, I was lost. So this was not a pleasant listen by any means. I liked Chromatica. I need to listen to the rest of her discography. And another one that I just thought of, Blonde by Frankocean. I do not like this album. I'm sorry. I think that China Orange was a pretty good album for the most part. With Sweet Life, I really enjoyed the song with Andre 3000, Super Rich Kids, Thinking About You, obviously a classic. Blonde, I mean, I had Pink and White, I like that song, and maybe two other songs. But I don't like whenever he does the thing where he pitches his voice up, and then I just thought that a lot of these songs just didn't really do a whole lot for me. I don't know. People keep saying that Blonde is, you know, one of the best albums of that year and of the century, and it was high on the Apple Music list, and I just do not get the hype for this album. I've gone back to it multiple times, and you guys give it far too much. I am so sorry. I like frankocean as an artist, but Blonde just wasn't really giving for me, to be honest with you. It's gonna be albums that people think are masterpieces that I just don't get the hype for. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you agree with my takes? Do you disagree with me? What are albums that people think are a masterpiece that you don't agree with? And you know, let me know down below, and you know, let's cause some controversy. Let's have some fun with it. Let me know some other albums that you think are masterpieces that maybe I didn't mention in this video, maybe I haven't heard them, and we can continue that moment there. But if you enjoyed this, you can give it a like, you can leave a comment, you can follow my page, or you can subscribe to me on YouTube. And thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.